Sometimes when you look at other people's financial situations and then compare to yourself, it feels like everyone else is doing better than you. Everyone else has all this money to go out and spend and eat out and have these nice cars and nice homes. And then you will wonder why you feel so poor, why you feel like even with people that you should be on the same level with, you are falling behind. This is especially true over the last year, where it feels like there's almost two economies: the people doing well and spending lots of money, and then the rest of us who might be struggling a little bit to keep up. It can definitely feel this way, like you're falling behind and just don't have as much money as other people, but there's a few reasons why this is probably happening. So in this video, I'm going to share some of the reasons why it feels like everyone else has so much money and you're just not keeping up. I promise you're probably not as behind as you think you are, so hopefully this video will give you some ideas of why it feels this way and why it might not actually be true and you're doing better than you think. So the first reason is that because you are making upward comparisons. This is natural to make an upward comparison. You're going to look at people that are doing better than you, or at least appear to be doing better than you. You will compare yourself to those people and wonder how you can catch up, how you can have the same things as them. This is just something you do naturally as a human. You likely aren't comparing yourself to the people that aren't doing as well as you financially, because you could be doing that. But if you have this feeling that people are all doing better and you're just falling behind, you're really not looking downward. You're only looking upward. Because when you look at the people doing worse than you, you realize, oh, things aren't so bad. They could be worse. I'm doing okay. I'm kind of in the middle. When we compare upward, it often leaves us feeling like everyone has more money than us because we're not looking at the other people that aren't doing as well as us. So there's a few reasons why this is true, and sometimes it is because they are doing better or they do make more money, but often it's really because of the reasons that are going to follow. The first of those reasons is that you are not using your money in the same way. Sometimes the financial image of people doing better than you is because you're not using money in the same way. This can be true in a lot of different areas of life, so I'll give you a couple of examples. So let's look at cars as an example. You and another person have $500 per month to spend on your car. So this is on the low end nowadays, but you are a really great shopper. You go find a used car and you have a loan for 36 months, $500 per month, and it's on a reasonable car. It's older, it's not like flashy, it's not exciting, but you pay it for 36 months, $500 per month, and then at the end, you own a car outright. It's fully paid for, and you have that car that has some level of value. The other person, however, takes their $500, goes to the dealership and gets a lease on a car. So for 36 months, they're paying $500 per month and they're driving a flashy new car. They're driving something nicer. They look like they have a lot more money because they have that leased vehicle. But at the end of the 36 months, they have spent $18,000 and they don't have a car to show for it. So this is something that can make someone appear to have more money than you, even though you're spending the same amount of money. You're just using money in a different way. The same thing happens with credit cards, where people are spending more than they can actually afford on credit cards. They drive up a debt balance. They're paying maybe the minimums, maybe more, but they're paying interest on those balances. And they're caught in a cycle of debt that is allowing them to live a life that looks really fancy and amazing on the outside, but you're not seeing those debt balances. You're not seeing the stress of carrying that revolving debt. You're just not seeing the whole picture because you're using money in a different way. So this is something that can be really hard to deal with because you're not seeing how money is used in every situation to make someone look like they have more money than they maybe actually do. Using money in different ways and with different tools like a lease or a credit card can make someone look a lot more financially impressive than they maybe actually are. And you don't know what their actual balances are. You don't know what their net worth is. And this is one of the reasons why comparisons can be so difficult, because you don't see the whole picture. Speaking of seeing the whole picture, is that you're forgetting the trade-offs. Maybe the person you're comparing to does actually make a ton more money than you. They make a lot, in fact, but you're maybe forgetting the trade-offs of how they got there. They put in the hours, they put in the work, they canceled vacations, they canceled time with their family. They put in a lot of effort to get to that position, and there are trade-offs for high-level positions. positions that pay really well. Sometimes those jobs are really, really stressful. I've seen people in my own life who made so much more money than me, but they actually were destroying their bodies due to the stress level that they were taking on because of that job. When they ended up in the hospital, that was their wake-up call that the trade-off wasn't worth it. But until that point, everyone around them thought they were doing so well. And you just don't know if what that trade-off is when someone does actually make more money than you. There's definitely trade-offs in getting that higher salary, but there's also trade-offs in spending. Sometimes people spend on certain things and they just don't spend on other things. This can make them look like they are doing really well financially and way better than you when you're only looking at that one little area of spending. There is a saying that you can afford anything, you just can't afford everything. This is true for other people, this is true for yourself, this is true for me. I can afford almost anything, but I can't afford everything. I can't do all of the things at once. And that is one of the reasons why when you're looking at other people as your measuring stick of who is doing better than you have to remember that there's trade-offs. Maybe they do have a really, really nice house and maybe they spend all of their money on that house, but you don't see that they don't go out to eat. They eat ramen. They do a lot of things that they wouldn't normally do so that they can afford to live in that neighborhood. Or maybe they travel all the time. You're like, how are they doing this? How are they constantly traveling? You're forgetting that they don't drive a fancy car, that they don't go out to eat at home. They only eat out when they're on vacation. Things like that are trade-offs that people make to afford the things that they really care about. And you don't always see that when you're doing these comparisons and feeling super poor and left behind because of other people's spending. When you understand that people are making trade-offs for either more money or spending on the things they value, you'll realize that you can do that in your own life and find the right balance and find the ways that you can afford what you want and what you care about, but you'll be making sacrifices in other areas because that's what generally most people have to do. Similar to the trade-off idea is that you don't know other people's values. When you are looking at how people are spending their money, you don't know what they actually value and why they're putting their money towards certain things and not other things. This is really important when you're comparing yourself because you know that you might not have the same values as the people you're looking at. I've had a lot of trouble with this in my own life because I often will see people spending money on things that I don't personally value, but they look cool and they look like something I would like, but they're not my top priority and they're not my thing that I value the most. So I don't spend my money there. And it takes me a while to remember that when I see other people spending their money on that thing, it's because they value it more than I do. This is definitely true on cars where I drive a pretty old paid off car because I don't personally value cars. But when I see someone get a nicer new one, I'm like, oh wow, that does look amazing. And I always think, oh wow, they have so much money to be able to afford that specific car. That's a nice car. But for me, I don't really value that. My car ends up being a transporter for my kids and gets messy and just isn't something I want to spend a lot of money on when we're trashing it anyway. So I want to make sure that I'm spending my money where my values are. When it looks like everyone has so much more money than you, it's because they're spending where their values are and maybe those values aren't the same as yours. Checking in with your own values is really important. Making sure that you are still spending on the things that you care about is important. So make sure you take time to prioritize what you actually value and care about. One of the reasons why you might feel like you have less money than people is because you're not seeing the unfair advantages that gave them what they have. So unfortunately in life, things are not fair. And some people start off with more than others. Some people are just given a natural unfair advantage over other people. And that's because of the family they're born into, certain circumstances, sometimes positive and negative. You don't know if they got an inheritance from someone in their family that they loved that passed away. You don't know if they had a family that helped them get their first job. You don't know if their family gave them the down payment for their house. This is actually something I've struggled with a lot because I got nothing from my family, but I've seen so many families that have helped their kids purchase a home, given them the down payment, or even bought the home outright for them. This can sometimes feel unfair, so I personally don't think too much about it because I know that some people just got an advantage when they started. And maybe I didn't get that, but good for them. This does feel unfair when you're looking at your own situation, but that's the reality of life. Things aren't always fair. Some people do get a leveled up situation. They do have an unfair advantage, and this is something that you just can't control. Other people are going to have a situation where they naturally start off on third base and you're just trying to get started. So some people do have more advantages than you, and while that does sometimes feel really bad, you just have to remember when you're looking at whether or not people have more money than you don't know if they had those unfair advantages. We're all running our own race. We're all trying to survive and build wealth and live the life that we want with the money that we have. And we just don't know where people started in that race. So you just really have to focus on yourself because you don't know what advantages people had and whether or not that allowed them to achieve the financial success that they have now versus where you are. Along those same lines, you're probably not thinking about the fact that you're at a different stage of life. We are all at different points in our own race and different points in our life. When you're looking at people that have more money than you might be comparing someone that is at a different point in life, and that's never going to be a fair comparison. If someone is older than you, even by just a couple years, this can make a huge difference in how much money they have and how much money they appear to have. Here's an example in my own life. When I graduated college, I graduated into a recession. There were no jobs. And a lot of people that I graduated with did not immediately get a full-time adult job, and including myself. I had to work part-time after I graduated college, and I never expected that to happen to me. However, people that graduated just a couple years before me graduated into a decent job market and got that first job more easily, and they were able to build a career that took off a lot faster than mine did. So even a couple years can make a huge difference in the trajectory of a career. So when you're comparing yourself to people even a couple years in front of you, they might be further along in their careers and have a lot more money to spend because they make more money. You also will obviously see this when you're comparing to someone in a generation above you. So your parents are going to have more money than you. Maybe they share that wealth, maybe they don't. But when you're comparing yourself to your parents and what they have currently, you just can't have the same thing, and that's not a realistic comparison. So yes, it's going to feel like they have way more money than you because they do, because wealth builds over time and careers build over time. So if you're comparing someone that's further along than you, they're obviously going to have more. So making those comparisons is really unhelpful. So when you're looking at someone that's had all of that time to build their wealth, to build their career, to make more money, you're not going to have a fair comparison. And a lesson about wealth that you need to know is that it builds exponentially. So in the later years, it's going to build faster and at a greater rate than it does in the beginning. So when you're looking at older people, they are obviously going to have more than you. So this is just something to remember when you're looking at people that have more money than you. Maybe they're just at a different stage in life. This is also true for stages of life where you're maybe single versus married versus having kids. These are very different stages of life. And if you are someone making a salary that is supporting just yourself, that's going to look very different than someone making that same salary supporting a wife and kids, or maybe kids and their parents. You're going to have a very different situation, even at the same income level, based on where you are in your life stage. If you're in that messy middle where you're trying to help out your parents, you're trying to support your kids through school, you're trying to do all of the things at once, that is going to feel like you have zero money, you have nothing compared to the person making the same salary, just supporting themselves. They're going to have more money to spend every month because they're at a different stage in life. They're going to have more money to go out to eat, to spend on their car, all of the things. And now I want to talk about the final reason why it feels like people have more money than you, and that is because you haven't defined enough in your own life. So it's very apparent when you don't know what is enough for yourself because you're always going to be looking for someone else's definition of success and enough. It is really easy to live a life in the current world where you are living up to other people's definitions of success and not even considering if that matters to you or makes sense for you. You get on that career treadmill, you start buying nicer and nicer things, you are working a lot to pay for the things that you have, and you're wondering why it doesn't ever feel like enough. You're constantly going and trying to earn more money and trying to earn more money because your expenses keep going up, and you just get on this treadmill that never ends. And let's be honest, it could never end because there's always something nicer you can buy. There's always something you can spend your money on. You can always try to earn more money. And that is kind of the American, especially the American way to earn more money, to pay for more things, to look nicer, to appear like you have more money and have nicer things, to always try to be on top of the next level of the pyramid, to feel like you're never at the bottom where people have more than you. But what is really important is defining your personal level of what is enough. What is enough for you in all of the areas where you feel comfortable, you feel happy, and you feel content. Finding the ability to be content with what you have is incredibly important and an underrated skill that we don't really teach or foster in our own culture. If you haven't defined what's enough for you, what will make you content, then you're going to be focused on always trying to earn more, always looking upward, always comparing yourself, always fostering a sense of jealousy inside of yourself when you look at other people. And this is just a recipe for disaster because you'll never feel like you have enough. You'll always feel like people have more money than you because frankly, people will always have more money than you. There will always be someone that makes more money than you. You are probably not a billionaire if you're watching this video, so there will always be someone that has more money, that makes more money per year, that can spend more money than you. You have to really look inward, decide what's enough, decide what will make you content, and then realize that you can stop there. You don't always have to be pursuing more, and you also don't always have to be comparing yourself to that next level. You can let yourself rest and be happy with what you have. And then once you define what's enough, you can stop the treadmill. You can get off. You can enjoy what you have, be content, and realize that you don't have to keep up with the always increasing levels of who has more money than you. So those are some of the reasons why people might look like they have more money than you do. Maybe they actually do because they make more, or maybe they spend their money differently, or maybe they're just propping up an illusion of financial success. Either way, I hope that you are focused on the things that actually matter in life and building real wealth that can help your family through any situation. So now you know some of the reasons why people appear to have more money than you do, and maybe you understand that sometimes they do have more money and sometimes they're just propping up an illusion of financial success with the right tools and spending. So this is definitely something to keep in mind as you work on building your own financial foundation and actual financial success that can help your family throughout the years. If you're interested in learning more on how to do that, definitely check out this next video.